All right, guys, sticking those short irons, that's where the birdies come from. Most all of your birdies are going to come from inside 120 yards. So how do we hit those close? I got some great tips for you that are going to help you to be more consistent, most specifically consistent with your distance. So Tiger Woods talks about this all the time, especially in his heyday. He's talking about, I need to get that club to go, or that ball to go the same distance every time. Your dispersion with your short irons usually isn't too bad. You're not going to miss the ball way to the right or way to the left. It's usually going to be fairly straight, but your distance control can be way off. You hit it a little heavy, it goes 20, 30 yards short. You hit one amazing and you just crush it, it goes 20 or 30 yards long, and you have this big difference in your distances. So first to start out, I have my sand wedge here. This is going to work for everything from your pitching wedge, 9-iron, sand wedge, any club that you want to hit from the shorter distance. Now as I go ahead and make a full swing, let's just get my stock standard distance today. So I'm hitting a range ball, I have a little wind in my face. I usually hit this club about 100 yards. I think it's going to go a little bit shorter than that today. Hit it just a hair thin. Almost got the range picker there. And let's see what the distance says. So my club head speed was 71 miles an hour club head speed, 98.4 carry distance. That's about right. My stock sand wedge is somewhere around 100 to 105. I can go a little harder than that if I need to, or a little bit easier if I need to also. So with a range ball, a little bit of wind in our face, that's about a perfect distance. Now, what if there's a little bit of wind? How do I control the distance then? That's really important on these short irons. Again, we have to control that distance. You're gonna get about 1% for every mile an hour of wind in your face. So if I have a 100-yard shot, a 10-mile-an-hour wind in my face, that's gonna be 10 yards longer. So if I have a 10-mile-an-hour wind in my face, I need to hit my 110 club to make it go 100. If I'm hitting my 150-yard club, and I have that same 10 mile an hour, I mean 1% for every mile an hour, I'm gonna need an extra 15 yards. So that wind can really play a big factor. If there's a lot of wind in your face, you may need to hit 2 or even 3 clubs, especially with those 150-yard shots. With these wedges, it's not gonna be more than 5 or 10 yards. So let's say there isn't wind. Now how do we control our distance? Obviously, if there's wind in our face, we'll just take 1 extra club. What if we're between yardages? What if I'm only, say, 93 to 95 yards, and I don't want to hit this full shot that goes 5 or 10 yards farther? Well, what I've found is that for about every inch that you choke up on the butt end of your club, that takes off about 5 yards. So I can comfortably choke up about an inch here. That's going to take a few yards off this shot. And now the cool thing is I can go ahead and swing full. I don't have to adjust my swing at all. And that ball is usually going to go right at about 5 yards shorter. Now, obviously I have to hit a nice clean shot to get the perfect distance, but I hit that one pretty well. Let's see what the numbers are. All right, so that one was 90.9, so basically 91 yards. The last one was 98, so that's about right. I went 6 or 7 yards shorter. There could have been a little bit extra wind, which accounted for that another couple yards. You'll also notice that my swing speed went down to 64. Again, I swung the same, but when I make this club shorter, it moves slower and slower. So that's the first couple pieces with controlling distance, but I get a lot more questions about controlling these short wedges, and I want to take some time to go through each one of those for you. And one of the other things that I hear all the time is, well, my shorter swings, I've been told to kind of keep my weight left the entire time. So I'm going to feel like my weight is already on my front foot, and I'm going to keep it there the entire swing. That way I ensure that I hit down and through. Now on short game shots, pitches and chips, where we don't really have a big, full, aggressive swing, that's completely fine. I can have 60 or 70% of that weight on my front foot and keep it there the entire time as I hit that shot. Those just aren't going very fast. It's easy to keep your balance when you're doing that. What I've found in the full swing, though, is keeping your weight forward can actually be pretty counterproductive. If I imagine I have my weight forward at address, what ends up happening is, as I go to the top of my swing, my weight is on my left side, and now my body realizes if I stay over here and I get my natural weight shift, I'm going to be so far in front of this, I'm really going to be chopping down very steep into this ball. I'm liable to chunk the ball or come down and just hit the top of the ball and it kind of dribble along. We don't want that. So being a great athlete, we're all better athletes than we realize we are. Naturally, what ends up happening, we can feel that we're too far left and we end up falling back to the right. When I fall back to the right, I'm going to hit the ground behind the ball. Again, I'm going to chunk it, or that club's actually going to be working back up, and I'm going to hit it thin. So that looks something like this. I'm keeping my weight left at address. I compensate, and now I'm falling back. I almost completely topped that ball, hit it very thin. It wasn't a very good shot. Also didn't feel very good. So what I've found, go ahead and take your normal weight shift with every single club that you're gonna hit with a full swing. So whether I'm hitting a lob wedge or a driver, I'm gonna have my same shift to the right. That's what we call the stable fluid spine, a little bit of tilt to the right. Now my head is slightly behind this golf ball. As I make my backswing, my weight goes to the inside of my right foot. As I make my follow through, my weight goes to the left foot. And as I finish, we're gonna see most of the weight's off my right foot, just my toes touching, and I'm pretty balanced with a nice high chest here in my follow through. Same thing for the driver. The only difference there is my feet are gonna be a little closer together for these shorter clubs. My ball may be slightly farther back, obviously, than it would be with a driver. But other than those two slight changes, everything else is gonna be virtually exactly the same. All right, so what about the length of my backswing? Do I wanna purposely try to shorten my swing with these wedges? Well, that all depends on if you're hitting a full shot or not. If I'm making a full swing, what's gonna end up happening is my left arm is still gonna go to the top of my swing. So my left arm's gonna get back here. If this was my left arm, it's gonna go back to 10:30. If we're looking at a clock face, this would be 9 o'clock, this would be 12. My left arm's gonna be about 10:30 or even a little bit more if you're more flexible. So whatever your normal backswing length is with your driver, however far your left arm goes back, the same thing's gonna happen with your wedge. So if we just concentrate on my left arm for this swing, notice how far this one goes back. There we go, and that's a nice full swing on that one. Now, what about the club itself? Now that will be a little bit different. The club will go a little bit shorter back whenever we're hitting a shorter club. Now the reason for this is our driver is much longer and the club has much more momentum. You can imagine this big head on the end of this longer club shaft. As that starts to swing back, if I'm just let the club go and I'm not trying to get real tight with my hands, that club is naturally going to swing back to about parallel to the ground, somewhere around there. A little bit farther is fine, a little bit shorter than that's fine too. If I do the same thing with a wedge, not quite as much momentum going back because the shaft is a lot shorter, and now it's going to naturally want to stop a little bit shorter in the swing. Now if I'm hitting distance wedges, so let's say that I'm taking a little bit of distance off, maybe I want to go 20 yards shorter than normal, that's when I will take a little bit shorter of a backswing than normal, or a shorter left arm than normal, to take some more speed off. Even if I do that, I want to go ahead and accelerate on through this shot. So shorter backswing, still come on through, accelerate through that shot. I don't want to take a shorter backswing and then kind of stop on my follow through. So a great question that I get a lot. Your normal swing, left arm goes back the same amount. The shaft will be a little bit shorter. If we're trying to take some distance off, you can swing shorter in the backswing, but still make sure you go ahead and accelerate on through there. You don't want to quit on that shot. Now, one other question I get a lot is why I keep thinning my wedges. It absolutely drives me crazy. I'm thinning them, they shoot way over the green. Nothing's worse than being 60 yards away saying, oh man, I'm gonna knock this thing stiff, have a great chance for a birdie putt, and then you shoot it over the green because you thinned it and it's up by the cart path or somebody under their chair in the patio trying to eat lunch. So it's really frustrating. Nobody likes to do that. Nobody likes to be that guy that smashes one into the clubhouse from a 60-yard wedge shot. So where's that coming from? Well, these last two things, I'll go over one more next, come from the same problem. If you're falling back, so remember earlier in this video we talked about if I try to keep my weight to my left, usually what ends up happening is I fall back and I'm hitting behind this ball again. So usually one cause can have multiple results. So if I keep on thinking, okay, I got to stay left to hit down, and now what ends up happening is I feel that and then I fall back on my downswing, what's happening is that club gets very close to the ground, actually starts working back up, and I hit it thin on this golf ball. Let me go ahead and try one out, see if I can thin one. There we go, so that one didn't get 20 feet off the ground, and I just sculled it, went another probably 20, 30 yards farther than I normally hit this club. That's the same cause as before. What I want you to do, just like normal, get that stable fluid spine, get that tilt to the right, get your weight to transfer on the inside of your right foot, and then come to the left. As your momentum shifts to the left, then you're gonna be able to hit down and through. If you're still having a little bit of trouble with that, what I want you to do is go ahead and put your feet together. You're gonna go ahead and take a step forward as you swing back. As I come through the shot, I wanna feel like I'm pushing all my weight in my front foot now, and then I'm gonna swing all the way on through. If you really wanna exaggerate even more than that, take that step, swing, and then let that right foot come all the way on up. That way you ensure all my momentum is going forward down the target line. If I'm doing this incorrectly, what would be happening is I'm left and now I'm falling back this way, away from the ball. That's essentially what's happening if you're struggling thinning the shot. Another one is, how come I'm scooping my wedges? This has to do with the same thing. So sometimes when we have these high lofted wedges, what happens is if I hit a 6-iron, 6-iron has about 30 degrees of loft. Let's say I don't have very much forward shaft lean on that 6-iron. That ball's still going to launch 27, 28 degrees into the air, so fairly low, and it's going to go pretty far. So even if I'm scooping it a little bit, I don't really notice as much with my longer irons or my driver or my woods or my hybrids. But if I'm scooping the club or not getting enough forward shaft lean with my wedge, now that ball is going to roll up the face. Again, the same root cause. If I'm having a reverse pivot, I'm falling back to the right. The only way to keep this club moving is to flip my hands forward. Now my hands are behind the club head, and I've added all kinds of loft to this club. Let's go ahead and grab my angle finder here. You'll see that as I go ahead and hang back, flip the club, look how much loft is on that. That ball is going to slide right up the face and shoot into the air. If I shift my weight forward, now I'm de-lofting the club. So I went from this much loft to that much loft. Now those wedges are going to compress the ball. They're going to go even farther. The cool thing is your 6-iron, your 7-iron, your 8-iron are all still going to go far too. So you can apply this same thing to every club. Lastly would be what we call the move. So as we start to shallow this club out, we're going to feel like this left wrist is bowed a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and supinate my left forearm. So this is the pro move that's happening. Keep your wrist flexed this way and turn your hand like you're turning a doorknob. So you'll see that's the action that's happening. That same thing is happening with those wedges and irons to get that club face square, and I'm de-lofting the ball. So if I hit this correctly, I'm going to de-loft that with my weight going forward, and oh man, I'm really going to compress it. It's going to be a great golf shot. Let's give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. All right, guys, hit that one nice and solid. Had my weight shifting forward, really de-lofted that club. Now, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to work on what we call the move in the Top Speed Golf system. So in a second, I'm going to play a bonus video that walks you through one of my best drills. It's called the tennis racket drill. All you have to do is click on the card up on the screen or down below, the link that's in the description. You'll get instant access to that tennis racket video. You're going to start hitting the ball fantastic and compressing these wedges. Just like I said, it works for every club in the bag. Let's go ahead and get started. Good player problems. We're going to talk about shallowing that club shaft out as we're starting down, as we're doing this rotating of the face that we worked on in the last video. As we start this downswing, what you'll see with basically all of the top players is instead of coming kind of over the top and letting the hands come out away from their body, letting the club come out away from their body, again coming down steep into the ball and then having to open up, kind of fillet open the face and add loft to it, the flattening of the shaft should happen as soon as we start down. So as we start this downswing, what we want to have happening here, you can imagine that if I draw a line from the hosel of my club up through my right elbow, that's my swing plane line, my elbow plane. As I go to the top of the swing, I'm going to be slightly above that. And then as I start down, I want my hands to start to shallow out. I want the club to shallow out inside of this elbow plane. And at the same time, I'm going to be rotating my hand.